Hi, folks. I'm Gar Whaley. I'm the CRO and co-founder of Teal. With me today, I have Don Sauer. He is our CEO, and more importantly to this conversation, he is our EOS Integrator. How are you doing today, Don?
I'm doing good, but I'm also a co-founder, don't forget.
I'm sorry, I forgot the co-founder part. He is my partner in crime, one of three of us. So today, Don, we're going to be talking about EOS. I get a lot of questions from uh, prospective clients as well as our current clients on what is EOS, why did we start it, those sort of things. So as a first question, tell us about your specific role within EOS. Why are you the expert in our company at this?
So I'm the what they call the integrator, and that's the role. Words actually mean something. Integrator, if you think of what that word means, I'm the guy who kind of brings all the pieces together, executes the plan, make sure people are executing on the plan. So there's only one integrator in the company, so that's me, and yeah, that's my role.
Yeah. So tell us at a high level what EOS is.
I always refer to it as a framework, for operating. I think they would tell you that it's a management system and a collection of processes and some tools that they've put together that you can use to effectively run and manage your business.
Yeah,
Gets you thinking in a certain framework.
It's a framework. So, weaving in our company history briefly, because we want to make this short and meaningful to the viewer.
Sure.
How do we get started? Why EOS for us?
I think we hit as you go through business, you can hit plateaus, and you need to try to find ways to break through. And we'd heard a lot of other of our colleagues in our peer groups having a lot of success with EOS. So we checked it out, made sense, and we adopted it.
Yeah, to me, one of the reasons that we adopted it, in addition to those, is sort of to jump the curve, sort of getting to a certain point in your business, and wanting to jump that curve to get to the next level. So
yeah, we were on that plateau and we wanted to keep going. So yeah, I'd agree.
About how long have we been using EOS?
Oh, 2.5 years.
Yeah. So if you think
Almost
about
3.
it, yeah. So that leads me to my next question. I think we've been in it since right around COVID, because wasn't it, didn't we start it and then get delayed because of COVID?
Well, we were planning to start it, but we delayed it to start because of COVID. So I want to say it was like mid 2020 or later 2020. So yeah, somewhere around that time frame is when we actually kicked off our initial meeting on it.
Yeah. So EOS, you basically has two main roles at the top, if you will, one of which is the integrator, but tell us a little bit about the other one.
So the other role is the visionary, and that's, again, the word says a lot, right? This is the person that has the vision for the organization, has an idea of where they want to go. In fact, probably has lots of ideas. And it's the integrator's job to try to help them sort that out, funnel that down to things that can be actually achieved in specific time frames by, the integrated efforts of the team. So yeah, that's what the visionary does, is they're kind of the big picture person.
So when we first adopted it,
person or group.
Pardon me?
The visionary person or group. In our case, it's a group, but yeah.
Yeah, we won't get into that level of specifics because it's specific to us, but it does lead us to implementation. So when we first started or thought about this, we went out and looked for a professional implementer, which I guess is something we would recommend. Sure. We took a little bit of a different path. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we didn't use a certified EOS implementer, although plenty of our colleagues and friends have, and they said that's a great experience. Because we had a similar experience implementing a different framework in a different company, in a different life almost, we were very comfortable with that person. They studied up on EOS implementation, and they led us through that, and it worked really well for us.
Cool. So the next thing I want to talk about, which is really getting into the core of it here, is the EOS model. Tell us a little bit about the EOS model, and I'm going to share my screen because I have a little document here that might be helpful to folks. This is downloaded right from the EOS website, and this is the basic EOS model. So briefly, can you walk us through these sections?
Yeah, again, man, they choose these words specifically because they actually the words alone tell the story. But you have the vision, and that's primarily that visionary role. You've got data, which is your metrics, your KPIs, and meaningful data that you need to see to manage the company, understand the company. You've got the underlying processes of how the company does its business. You have the concept of traction, which is really related to a thing they call rocks. And this is setting goals, establishing kind of 90-day thinking, if you will, so that you can set a goal, 90 days, achieve that goal, then set the next 90 days, and so on and so forth. So that's how they help you get traction, rubber to the road on the initiatives that you need to work on. Issues is a way to collect the important things that need to be tackled in the company in terms of maybe solving problems or new offerings or things of that nature, where the leadership team and others come together to discuss those. They talk about identify, discuss, and solve, which they call the IDS, but issues is the list that you start with. And then people, of course, is the foundation of every great organization is the people, and you have to have processes to make sure that you have great people in the right seat, on the right bus, and in the right seat. They have a concept within the people component called GWC, which is people have to get it, they have to want it, and they have to have the capacity to do it. And by capacity, they mean it's got to be in their wheelhouse. So those are the 6 elements, if you will, of the EOS model.
Yeah, perfect. The GWC is a little bit more tactical, but it's important, and I know it's a part that you love specifically. Let's talk a little bit about process, and I have another screenshot here I'm sharing. Again, right from their website. There's tools you can buy to help implement these, and they have a lot of the data right on their website. But talk a little bit about the process of EOS, which we follow pretty religiously.
Sure. Yeah, the everything from the on the left-hand side of the document, outside of the little circle over there in the 90-day world, is really how you get started. With EOS, you have the 90-minute meeting, typically with that implementer. From that, you have a focus day, and then you move on to 2 separate vision building days, day 1 and day 2. You spread 30 days apart between each of those 3 events. And from that's how you get started. Then you really start living the EOS cycle in that 90-day world, where you have quarterly pulses, they call them. You have an annual pulse, which is a 2-day event once a year, and that's kind of your business planning time. So that's that 90-day thinking that we've talked about. And then in between there, of course, you have level 10 meetings, which I think we might talk about here in a second too.
Yeah, we could talk about those in a minute. But so for us specifically, as I said, we're pretty religious about these. We do all of these off-site typically, or in the case of COVID, I guess we were remote. But we made them all happen. Talk a little bit about this process and adoption throughout the organization.
In our case,
yes.
Yeah, I think the integrator has to really strongly support it. Integrator, you could also say they're an advocator. You need strong advocate to make the case to the company and the staff as to why this is important. It's pretty much true of any initiative in any company, right? So stands to reason it would be here. So you have to have a strong advocation, and we got great adoption, I think, specifically across our leadership team at the top of the organization, where a lot of the planning occurs. But after some initial adoption there, we start to see people start to appreciate the value of it, and it starts to trickle down to the rest of the organization. In our case, we let it trickle down. In other cases, you may take a more scheduled approach, say you want to drive it down, but we didn't even have to drive it. It was producing such good outcomes and good conversations that it worked its way down itself.
Yeah, that's what's the most amazing about our organization is we let it we let it organically flow through the organization. So at all levels, it's being used. Let's talk a little bit about tools. So I have some other screenshots that I downloaded. What do you think? What tool do you want to talk about first?
You take your pick.
VTO.
The vision traction organizer. Yeah. So you'll initially fill this out in those vision building days. And this is where, as you're seeing on the screen, you identify and settle on your core values. These are things that are, critical to who you are as a company. They're typically things that don't change a lot because they are so core. And you get everybody in alignment with what those are. Your core focus is, why are we here? What's our purpose? What's our cause? What's our passion? And then, what is the niche that we serve? And then you start the time planning, which is you take a 10-year look. If you scroll back up a little bit, you take you set a 10-year target for the company. Where can we be in 10 years? What does that look like? You set a 3-year picture, which is with a little bit more clarity and more of a what does it look like listed out. You have the marketing strategy for how you're going to get there. And then as you're moving down to the second page, you get into the 1-year plan, which is higher specificity goals for that year, which translates into your quarterly rocks or your 90-day rocks. And then, of course, your issue list there. So the VTO helps you really stay focused on the plan. Sometimes it's substituted really for a business plan.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. For many of our peer groups, or one specifically, we actually use this as our business plan. Don, you said something earlier that we might get to. I want to make sure we got to that.
The level 10 meeting.
Level 10 meeting. I don't think I have oh, here we go. Yeah. Let's talk about that because that's very important.
Yeah. So the level 10 meeting is a weekly meeting that you have every week, same day, same time every week. Participation from the leadership team is mandatory. Obviously, if you can't make it, it goes on, but it goes on regardless of who is available. But it's a really important meeting, and you really schedule your other activities around that meeting. And the meeting is framed out. There's a recommended agenda, which we pretty closely follow. There's your segue where you talk about what are the good things that are going on in your life and in work. There's the scorecard where you review those KPIs that we talked about earlier from the data segment, and you really distill that down to the most important for the company and for the leadership team. You go over your rocks very quickly, just kind of are we on track, off track, on track, off track? If you're off track, then you discuss it in issues later in the meeting. You go over headlines for the business or for your clients or for your employees, anything that rises to the level of a headline. You keep track of your to-dos, which is generally items that you can complete in a week or so as a result of your conversation. If you say, hey, can you do this? That's a to-do, and that action gets assigned and followed up on. And then you get to the meat of the meeting, which is that IDS that I referred to before, that identify, discuss, and solve. And that's where you create a list of issues that we need to work on together as a team. And you prioritize those, and you discuss them, and you hopefully leave with a solution. Then you wrap it up and figure out who else needs to know, and you distribute the report, and you rate the meeting, which is another important thing in EOS is score the meeting for its effectivity, so you know how you're doing with the actual meeting itself.
Yeah, so this is the kind of thing, this process and this meeting specifically is the kind of thing that organically rolled down in our organization. So I want to sort of bring this to conclusion, but before I do, Don, we sort of skipped over, I think, a third role that's important or may not be.
Third role or third tool?
I was going to go to a third role, but let's talk about the third tool. Which one do you want to talk about?
Accountability chart.
Accountability chart. I got it right here. Thanks.
Yeah, so the accountability chart is, some people might say, well, that looks like an org chart. It's not. It looks like one, but it's not. This is not an organization of a chart of who reports to who. It's a chart of the accountabilities and who's responsible for what, who's accountable for what. Naturally, it takes a kind of a tree form there because accountabilities have leadership components. But yeah, it's really important, and it's a great way for anyone in the organization to understand where they fit in and who else does what in the organization.
Yeah, so that's great. There's other tools as well. We're just highlighting the higher level ones are the more important ones to us. But there's a lot of different
there's
tools.
a ton of tools.
Yep. I was going to say about the third role. So we have visionary, we have integrator. You play the role of integrator, and then there's also the role of implementer. And as we conclude and talk about next steps, what's an implementer?
So implementers, what we talked about. That was you're talking about the role like our buddy Mike played.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the role that we talked about kind of earlier, which is that the person that can probably help you get started. There are certified EOS implementers, but then they can also help you stay on track. So they can attend your quarterly meetings, they can attend your annual pulses, you can even engage them to participate in your weekly level 10s, whatever level you're comfortable with. Mm-hmm. And there are people that help you implement it, drive that adoption, make sure you're getting the most out of the framework. And yeah, that's the role of the implementer. Typically in that, like I said, most is an outsider that is a consultant or a certified EOS implementer, but you can also have that internally driven as well.
Yeah. So the reason I bring it up is because we self-implement. We don't have an implementer. We started with one to get us kicked off, but now we feel comfortable with it, and we for good or bad, we self-implement. But
and our strategy from time to time, we consider bringing someone in just to test and see how we're doing, and we may do that in the future.
Yep, and we did that at the end of last year. So sort of two last questions, summing this up. Has it made a difference? What type of difference has it made to our organization?
I think it's made an incredible difference in our organization. Getting things down on paper and documents and frameworks and shared and living documents, so that as we change, they change. The meeting cadence that it gives you, the cadence of operating the business is very good. That weekly, quarterly, annual. These are also not rocket science. One of the beautiful things about EOS is that it really pulls together a lot of best practices that have been established elsewhere and by other people, but it pulls them all together. Gar talked about there's many tools, and we're pulling a lot of stuff from other places as well. And it's had a big impact. That's why I think the buy-in is so high, and it really helps keep you focused. I think that's one of the main things that you get out of this is you get organizational focus.
Yeah, I would say just the biggest thing for us is discipline, right? You set a plan, you set rocks to get to the plan. By the way, there's 3 to 7 rocks, company rocks per quarter. So it sets the focus and the discipline and the plan. Plus, it gets everybody on the same page. So what are your recommendations to companies that might want to get started?
Personally, I would recommend, I think we had a little bit of a unique situation because of our relationship with someone and their experience with doing these types of things. But personally, I would recommend going to the EOS website, reaching out to an implementer, but maybe even before you do that, buy this book. I'm not selling, I don't get any dividends from this, but this book, Traction by Gino Wickman, he's the founder of EOS. There's another book you can check out, Rocket Fuel. There's another one called What the Heck is EOS, which is kind of a quick down and dirty. But really, for me, Traction is the book that kind of lays it all out there, and it's a pretty easy read. It's only 200 and so pages, 225 pages maybe. So yeah, I'd get the book and read that. It'll give you a great idea of what you can expect.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. That's perfect. Consider an implementer, read the book, and get started. Last question, Don. What is the book that we send to all new employees as it relates to this?
That's What the Heck is EOS.
What the Heck is EOS? Great, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, Don, I'll throw you under the bus a little bit. Don and I are always here. If anybody wants to talk, we are true go-givers. If you just want to have a conversation about how we use EOS, we're both happy to do it. Other than that, hopefully this helps. Have a great day. Thanks very much, Don. Good talk.
Yeah, ditto. Thanks, guys.